Hi, thank you for tuning in to the Finding Harmony podcast with me, your host, Harmony Slater. Hello, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. We have a very...
You walked right over me again.
I know. Very special guest today.
I'm your assistant now, or am I like co-host?
You're still co-host, but everyone knows you're here.
But nobody knows I'm here. Sometimes you do these without me. You just go off with some feminist, and I'm not even involved.
Yeah, sometimes we like to do that. But we have such an amazing guest joining us today. I'm so thrilled. We've been planning this for a long time now. It's been a long time coming. Finally, we have David Garrigues.
David Garrigues.
Garrigues. We just talked about this.
It's a Catalonian term.
David
Garrigues.
No.
It depends on what side of the Pyrenees. If you're on the west side of the Pyrenees, Garrigues. Yeah. If you're on the east and the south of France, Garrigues.
Yeah.
We just learned that like 30 seconds ago.
I know. My brain is a sieve.
When I go to France, that everyone can pronounce my last name better than me.
Yeah. That's nice. You can just sit back and relax.
So I have such a giant kind of man crush on David. I've had it for over 20 years.
Yeah.
And one of the highlights of my entire yoga career was escorting David around the city of Gokulam for hours trying to find him a tabla player. And I was so excited to get him on the show today to talk to him about that, about the old times, about the kirtans. Doesn't know me at all.
I know. So terrible. Oh my God.
He said, and we've never met. It's like, I guess not. I guess one of us met the other one, but one of us did not meet me. Yeah, made zero. Oh, such a little nerd. Made zero impression on you.
But that was so long ago, David.
Yeah, I have a terrible memory that way. Like when I watch a film, like, I can be so into it and think it was so cool, and then I can't even remember. Like, it's I don't know. It's funny. Some details like that. I mean, important ones, but I just think they slip through.
They just go.
It blows my mind, actually, because I vaguely remember something like that, but I would have never remembered it if you wouldn't have mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it like sparks. I'm like, oh, I kind of have a vague recollection.
Oh, it's amazing because the memory sparkles for me is like, oh, my time with David. One-on-one time.
He had to pull out the memory and dust it off.
It's still not quite there. Yeah. Yeah, but I distinctly remember George and I, George Whiteside and I were sitting with you outside the Shala 2003, and we were talking to you, and we were kind of, like so awkward and didn't know what to say. And then you said, well, I gotta go, guys. Gotta go get lunch. I said, okay, bye, David. And then George and I turned to each other. It was like, I didn't know what to say to him.
It's funny when, like, I feel like the Mysore community, in the early 2000s especially, was like, I mean, it's probably still like this. We just haven't been there for quite a while, but it was like, you guys were just such celebrities and legends. The old students, there was like there was no Instagram, there's no like social media, there's nothing. There's just like this story, or like this person, you'd meet someone and someone would be like, do you know who that is? And you're like, no, who's that? And they're like, that's David Garrigues. And you're like, whoa.
But it's also, it's like, do you know that guy? He was the bassist for Black Flag. Yeah. And it's like, who's Black Flag? You were extremely famous to like 200 people.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
And you were the bassist for Black Flag, is that right?
Not Black Flag, but 10 Minute Warning. That was a band in Seattle. We opened for Black Flag, or we went on a little tour with them, and
That's amazing.
yeah, and Duff
Wow.
McKagan, who's a bassist of Guns N' Roses, was in
Yeah.
10 Minute Warning. So it was kind of a, within
Whoa.
Seattle underground, it was a seminal band, and the drummer was the drummer that became the drummer for Mother Love Bone, which, if you know, they were growing.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was some
Yeah.
heavy players in the band, and little old me, who was just a skater, kind of almost like a hippie, because I was getting into yoga by that time a little bit.
Yeah.
Or was I? No, sorry, I'm getting it mixed up. We had a reunion, and I did that later. But no, but I didn't. I was a non-musician basically. I got into punk really heavy, hardcore, and I picked up a bass as a result of getting so into the music. And like I just practiced in my room and like the Dickens, and then I got a tryout for the 10 Minute
Wow.
Warning because I was friends with they were all part of the scene, and I was friends with Duff and Paul, who was the guitarist, and there wasn't many choices, and there was down between me and Maggot Brain, this guy Maggot Brain.
Oh.
And he had a mohawk. His whole look was really something. And then me, I was like kind of hip, and I had the coolest bass ever, and so that helped a lot.
Yeah.
Got in the band somehow, and I played with these amazing
Wow.
musicians, and that they went on to be, big time. But I had
And
another path.
you had
That's
another path.
that's
Yeah.
so interesting. There's a lot of fun intersections there. Like I've seen this video of the 10-year reunion of the Postal Service, and they did a fake video of the tryouts for the Postal Service, and
Oh
Duff
yeah.
McKagan was in it, and so was
Oh yeah.
Moby. And Moby, of course, is a big, Ashtanga yogi friend of Eddie Stern.
Oh
They went to
yeah.
high school together. And I'm just like
Yeah.
imagining you hanging out with Duff McKagan, like that's fucking crazy. And then there are all these videos of or interviews with like the Red Hot Chili Peppers and how they were doing Ashtanga yoga back in the day, but also like they would do it backstage before they would get on their sets.
Wow. Yeah. But yeah, but with Duff, he was so, like, we would go. Some of my coolest memories are like we would after practice we would go down and go swimming in the Lake Washington, and it's that was a really amazing time actually.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that punk, when I was into the punk scene, it was dark time of my life, and I was living on the street and really confused and angry and challenged, and playing the bass and picking up the instrument really helped me to kind of pull out of that. And then the fact that I got in that band, it just made it even more like kind of official and high level. And so it was a big thing, that real source of confidence, and just sort of rising up and going on my path. And
Yeah.
I also remember when we broke up, 10 Minute Warning, I had another dark time, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I saw Duff in the parking lot of the Herfy's restaurant. It's like a McDonald's of Seattle, and he was on his way to LA to try to make it big. And I was like really down, and I'll never forget, because he was such a positive person. Like he's always been a real role model for me, actually, because of how his outlook was always super positive. And I sort of was moping in my downness. I was indulging in it, and he did not sympathize or take to it. In fact, he was kind of like blown away, because he had looked up to me too, because I was also like somebody that I was always trying to grow and change and, like, find the best of things. And so after I went away from him, I reflected on that, and it helped me to like turn around, to change my attitude, and
That's amazing, because that's I can see now even more how that video is really, this Postal Service video is really super ironic, because he plays such a resentful guy in the video, because
oh,
he's doing the tryout and he says, "So who are you?" "I'm Duff McKagan. I'm in Guns N' Roses." I says, "No, there's one guy in blonde. There's one blonde guy in Guns N' Roses, and you're not him." And this is fucking bullshit. There's two blonde guys in Guns N' Roses. Fuck this.
oh,
I'm out of here.
oh,
And it
wow.
was just hilarious.
But it's all scripted.
It's all
like,
scripted, and you can like, if he's that kind of guy, that you can see like that would be so even out of character for him.
Yeah, yeah, right,
Wow.
yeah.
I just want to ask you, in your bio, it kind of, I have played at being homeless at parts. I've made the choice to. When I was in college, I took a year off of living in a domicile. I wondered how much of a choice it was for you when you said you're living on the streets. Like, was it something that you were trying out the punk scene, or were you forced to?
No, I was kind of forced to, I mean, by my choices. Like, I'll still never forget. So my mom, her boyfriend at the time, he was the head of security at the Olympic Hotel, and it was like the Westin or something chain kind of. And he got me a job there, and like my whole punk persona, I was wearing my army boots in my uniform, and I ended up getting fired because I just couldn't play it straight. And so, like, I was playing it for real. Like, it was something I bought into the whole thing. Like, I was against, you know, the establishment and the typical way of approaching how you're supposed to go to college and get a job and get married and have kids, and like that whole thing was just not for me. And I was, yeah, and though I didn't have direction though in a way either. So I was, partying a lot on the scene, and drugs definitely entered into it. And I will say it wasn't like a destitute living on the street. I was young, and there was something easy about it somehow, and not super. And it kind of got darker, I'll say.
Yeah.
I got a real lucky break. I got a few lucky breaks. Getting a 10-minute warning was one, but also there was a young woman that was one of the punks, and her mother was a super cool lady that I met, and she had a house, and she let me live in the house for $50 a month, and
Wow.
so stuff like that. So I was able to climb out of it, and then I started going to school too, to the community college to learn music, and just things like that. And I changed my diet, and I started just kind of like going in this direction that was headed towards more like yoga, or like what I was going to pursue eventually. And that it was a real long-term search and struggle for me, because so that was, I was just whatever, 18, 17, 18. And then even through going through, I ended up going into those community colleges, and then I ended up going to Evergreen State College to go to finish my, the just basic college degree. And I still came out of that whole experience not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And it was a real sore spot with me, because how much I value work. Like me, my
Right.
work is almost everything. And it took decades to basically sort out, like, how is this going to work? Like, how is David going to figure out what is, what's inside of him, what's as important, and how's he going to share that or contribute. And and so that punk part was like almost like the start of it, like from high school, just kind of, I'm not going to college, I'm going to, to this whole scene, and I'm sort of adrift here. And like,
Yeah.
After I worked for Outward Bound, I ended up doing that. I took a course as part of my searching, and that's that kind of wilderness outdoor stuff. And I ended up going back as an assistant and working there. And then I was still just really trying to figure out this career thing. And I ended up in Colorado, and I went to a career counselor for 1 year continuously.
Oh, wow.
I think you take like some aptitude tests, and you're done, But me, I was in it for 1 year and not any closer to figuring out like what was going to work for me. And the woman that was the counselor, she just didn't know what to do with me, and she handed me this book, Puer Aeternus by Marie-Louise von France. And she was a Jungian analyst.
Oh, wow.
And that Puer is the eternal youth.
Yeah.
And basically, that was me. I was like this kind of Peter Pan, this little kid that could never grow up.
Totally.
And could never really settle or commit on anything, and so I still searched for even longer after that, until I stumbled on yoga, and then I started taking a lot of yoga classes, and I ended up getting in touch with Ashtanga, and then going to India and stuff, and even then though, like, when I was studying at first, I didn't have it in mind to teach at all. I was just practicing and loving it, and just connecting with this thing that amazing discovery of a practice and thing. And it's funny because John Campbell, one time I was having lunch with him in Mysore, and we hung out. We even had bands together in Mysore, weird kind of these folk bands and stuff. And it was weird how he put it too, because he was like, we were on the subject of work and stuff, and like he was always so well adjusted, He,
on the outside.
I mean, he has his demons,
he does.
No, but back then, I don't know how he is now, but then he was like, so when, for instance, like on Guruji's birthday, he would step up and like sing the Sanskrit sloka for all of us.
Like, perfectly.
I would be like, no way, I could not do that. I'd be like, run and hide. Anyway, he said, just point blank, he goes, I know what you should do. I was like, really? Okay, what? Teach yoga.
Yeah.
That was it. And it was funny how I had not squared on that myself, And then I also, sorry, one more thing. I also studied with this beautiful Iyengar teacher in Seattle, Adil Pakiavala, who's a wonderful teacher.
I'm sorry, is he in Seattle?
Yeah.
Because I worked with him in Taiwan. He had come to Taiwan, and I had kind of helped set up the studio for him.
Okay.
I thought he was like straight from India. I didn't realize he was living in Seattle, where I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. I mean, he grew up with Iyengar and everything, but there he was in Bellevue, Washington, right? And so I studied a lot with him. And then at one point I started volunteering to become a physical therapist. And because I was like, still, what the hell am I going to do here? And he just discouraged that. He was like, do you need to be a yoga teacher, not a physical therapist? Like, and it was so weird because, like my family does not support my yoga. And so, and just like my whole approach is a little bit unconventional. So I don't get a lot of support in a way, like, and so like when somebody like Adil, he just cut through and said, you need to teach yoga, that makes an impact on you. And So
Yeah.
There's
Amazing.
there's something I just want to ask about, and we're not psychotherapists or psychologists or anything, but I just I'm curious if there's a thing here, because it said it again in your bio. Your father was a air traffic controller, and your mom was a nurse, I think, and they had divorced. I think when you were 7, that was about when my parents divorced as well. And there's I feel I feel like this is a conversation that you would have with a father, and it's very like
exactly.
the dynamic is very familiar to me, that I didn't have this conversation with my dad at all, ever. Like, what should I do, Dad? You know,
Yeah, it was.
and that's a thing that you see fathers say to sons when they actually live in the same house. It's like, I really, what do I do, Dad? Like, I think this is probably one of the best courses of action you could take. Like, that's a kind of
Exactly.
dad thing to say. And then you describe Adil, John Campbell, this burgeoning, flowering relationship with Pattabhi Jois it's a kind of a father's stand-in, like someone who is saying, like, this is the kind of thing that you should be thinking about doing, given what you're
Totally.
doing.
Yeah, that's it. And exactly. Yeah. And then if you want to go into the psychology realm of it, it's like there's also all this anger and sort of rebelliousness and very challenged by authority because the father figure was absent. Like, because my dad, he wasn't involved even after the divorce. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't have a relationship with him, and and so and part of my whole thing with the punk thing was the anger, right? The so
Yeah.
much, all the slam dancing and the music, um, and it carried through to um, just yeah, like I still live with a lot of anger. Like it's something I
Mm.
really have to process or negotiate, and and yeah, and so I went through a whole arc with Pattabhi Jois, and I definitely made him a father figure, and
Hmm.
he accepted that role, and like I'll tell you, he played a serious game with me around it, and
Hmm.
helped me to heal from it partly.
Mm.
So what he did this thing where so there's 12 people in the old shala, 12 people would fit in there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And Sharat would practice in the beginning, but then he would finish and help. So there was two of them helping 12 people, right?
Yeah.
And and I was much more Pattabhi Jois's student than Sharat. Sharat didn't really pay much attention to me, and but Pattabhi Jois basically completely ignored me, like just like and just like didn't give me any help at all. And so I became obsessed with what he was doing, like in the room, like who he
Mhm.
was helping and all this stuff, And I went through
Mhm.
hell. It's like
Mm.
hell, wanting attention and recognition and
Wow, and the same dynamic of wanting attention from the father figure and not getting it.
exactly, yeah.
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 And he would do stuff like, yeah, he would do, I don't know, just playing these psychological games. But then
Yeah.
I almost quit more than once. Almost was like, I had enough of this. And
Hmm.
then finally, one day, you won't believe this. One day I got so pissed, I just stopped paying attention. I just like went into my own practice, like really strong. And I swear to God, that was when he started helping me. Like the
Mm.
moment it happened, he was like he was aware of it. He like saw the shift, and that was it. And then he
Mhm.
started helping me from then on because I learned like I didn't need that help.
Yeah.
That was a dead end what I was trying to get from somebody else. And
Wow. That's such a subtle shift. How would you
yeah,
even notice that in a student, that they
I
were,
know.
yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I feel like that happens a lot or did happen a lot in Mysore though. Like you'd want a new posture and you'd want it and you'd want it. It'd be like 2 months and no new postures, no attention, nothing. And then the day that you're like, fuck it, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna stay here for the rest of my life, and this is gonna be my practice, and I'm totally cool with it. And like you legitimately are totally like resolved. Like
Yeah.
that's it. I don't even want the new posture. I'm totally just here. And then it's like that day you get the new posture and you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting, right? How it's like, I don't know. I think India is kind of a fascinating place that way, where there's, I don't know. It always felt like there was something else happening on like a different energetic level than just.
That's super interesting, Harm, because I got my last day in Mysore ever, probably. I'd always kind of had this fascination with like these quasi deities that would show up in Mysore, like Olaf or the guy from Australia, Matthew Sweeney. They'd show up and they'd get like half a series, and they go home. They get half a series, like Alaya would get half a series one day, or Fabio would get half a series one day, and I'd just be like, I'm a
one posture guy.
I'm a one posture pony, and I get one, and I would just be so like just pulling my hair out. Like I'm spending like years of my life. I'm spending enormous wealth that I've created over a year's time, and I get one posture. And then my last day, my last trip to Mysore, I got half a series, and I was like, I don't even want this. I got half a third and I don't want it. I don't want to do these postures. I don't want to do any of it.
And you were like, okay, I'm done.
I'm done, actually. I'm going to go home. I'm going to work on Surya Namaskar and just keep doing that. That's what I like doing.
Yeah.
A little bit of, Baddha Konasana at the end.
You must have seen so many interesting changes, though. This was something that I kind of wanted to talk to you about, because I feel like the Ashtanga, scene in sort of the 80s, early 90s, even into kind of the late 90s was, you must have really felt like you found your people. It was like a lot of punks, kind of a lot of like
punks, new yogis.
Yeah, like that alternative kind of hardcore kind of people who were like into alternative things. And now it feels like it's kind of gentrified a bit.
It's got a Starbucks in Gokulam.
I don't think they do.
They do. There's a Starbucks.
But like, can you tell us?
Harmony. I don't know. I can't really speak to that because I'm not part of it, so I don't really know. I'm not knowledgeable, right? And but there's no doubt that it was found my people when I was there, right? And it was, and it wasn't just what there's I'm very much a loner, and somehow that I was still a loner within that, and but I definitely, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how much I think it was a small window, a small period of time where it felt like really family and close. And it's weird. I hate to say it, but in some ways I like sort of, I don't know, my choices or my karma, it sort of pulled me out of it, like I didn't stay in the center of it, even when I had the chance to, like, somehow. And it's weird. It challenges me to a certain degree, but also I understand it too in a way. But just for instance, I feel like almost embarrassed to tell you this, but you know how after practice you would go over to Guruji's and have coffee or something.
Yeah.
And this was by the time the new Shala was happening, and I was really into the music, and I had found like real family with my singing teacher and stuff. Like I was like part of his family, and so I spent a lot of time with him and
What was
Ravi, the
his name?
flute. His name was
Ravi the flute player.
Virabhadraya. Yeah, and my singing teacher's name was Virabhadraya, and you cannot. There, even nowhere in the world can you buy with money the generosity that he gave me, like how much time he spent with me. Like, because I wasn't a very good singer, but I loved it, and I really was dedicated, and it turned out to be like super cathartic and important for me because I was so shy and really, really feel I'm like I said, I'm a loner. I'm shy and kind of awkward socially. And as a teacher, I was terrified to teach, to use my voice. And I literally every time I would go to do the invocation when I started teaching, I would get butterflies in my stomach. Like I would actually, it would be this big moment. Okay, I'm going to do the invocation. And I mean, it wasn't like for 2 weeks. It was like for 2 years or 3 years. Like it was a big trauma for me to do the invocation, right? And so this singing, it, I mean, it just kind of cut all that. It gave me my voice, and it didn't make me a singer, but it made me a speaker and somebody that could just communicate and, talk and be communicate my convictions basically and use my voice. And so anyway, that was really important to me. And like Saraswati, they'd be like, you come for coffee, and I would blow them off. Yeah, I did not go. Like, this was the
pinnacle,
center of it all, and they're begging me, and I'm like, nah. And of course, that doesn't last. The invitation doesn't last, right? And
they ask once,
yeah, and then a really terrible thing happened that I didn't feel was my fault, and it also whatever. Maybe this is gossip or something, but so Sharat was going to go on a tour by himself, and he was going to come to Seattle, right? And I was all stoked about that, and it was all set. And then all these people put pressure on the people that were going to host him, Sharat. They put all kinds of pressure on because they were afraid that Guruji was going to die when Sharat went away. They didn't want him to leave. And so I'm the only one. I caved in. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I went to Sharat and I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it. Or I had doubt, and then and so then once I had done it, then the people were like completely ditched me. They were like,
threw you under the bus. Really,
and then they were all sympathizing with Sharat after they told me I shouldn't go do it. And then but it never really recovered with Sharat from there. Like he never took me seriously after that. Like I had my shot at it, and I should have just like, if I had it to do back, I would have just gone, whatever. If he wants to come, I'm having it, and just little things like that happen, and so I didn't end up part of the belonging, and then also my choices of how to interpret the practice were unconventional, kind of dramatically, and that also made it.
But each person's interpretation of the practice is unique to their experience with the teachers they have. And so that was the beauty of Ashtanga yoga, like the Pattabhi Jois video with the Millers and with Richard Freeman and Karen Rain. they were all doing exactly the same practice, and yet their uniqueness flowered in that environment, and they couldn't have been more unique. And knowing that when you go and practice with them, what you learn from each of those 6 individuals was so very different and so very unique. And like, this is your experience as well, isn't it?
Yeah, but that it's not celebrated. That's the
Mm-hmm.
problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
my certificate got taken away, I got taken down off the list, and
Oh, in the when Sherrod was taking
The
people off the
official, the
list.
lists. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
Are you
like I
on
said,
Saraswati's lists though?
I
Are
think
you
so.
on her
I,
list? Because
I don't know,
that's the
honestly.
real list. You should check that one.
That's the real list.
That's the
Okay.
real list. I looked at it once, and I looked at it and had everyone there. I was like, oh yeah, that's the real
They
one.
just copy and
Oh,
paste
okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the
I'm
list
not
I would want to be on. Yeah. Mm.
uh-huh.
Mm.
But I'm not
J-
100% blaming Sharat or anything. It's my own choices. Like the truth of it is, when I really get down to it, like I practice out. I don't know if you've seen pictures of my cave in the backyard, but that's where I practice, is outside in my backyard, and I made it
mm.
like sacred, and that is where
Beautiful.
I'm most comfortable. Like I
Yeah.
don't, I'm not really that good at being part of a higher a structure, or
Mhm.
like I'm better just off on my own. And I honor the lineage in my own way, and I love the people that are part of it, but it's more from a distance or out, like, and I don't feel comfortable right there in the center of it, and it just doesn't seem like my place, or for the in any way, for the people or for me, and so, but sometimes I mean, I wish it was like you were saying, Russell, but it's not. In fact, it's whoever toes the line very closely, that's who's included,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
I think you're speaking to something that like a lot of um I don't know, as teachers maybe we felt, or people who were like in that group, especially in the early days when it was much smaller, then the inner circle was even smaller, and even though there's a sense like as an outsider looking in, it's like, oh, you're a part of it, you're in the whatever inner
yeah,
circle. But
in a good place,
as
right?
yeah, but as someone who sees all the circles, you're like, no, I'm actually really not in the inner circle. I'm like
Right, right, right.
quite outside.
I
Yeah,
was
right.
thinking about I was thinking about my first trip to Mysore when you were there and John Campbell was there, and I was staying at Saraswati's place across the street on the roof. And I would sit there on the roof being so far removed from any kind of circle at all, like an asteroid away from a solar system as far as being removed. And I would sit there in my and I the horribleness of it is that if I sat on my bed, I could see the sacred few being invited to coffee in the inner circle across the street, because I could see directly into their living room from where I sat on my bed.
Yeah,
And I'd
yeah,
watch like Barry Silver and Lino come over for coffee and have coffee with, and I would just sit there and watch them as they would all have their special secret time together. And I would just be seething with resentment. And then, years later, like a decade later, I'm like escorting the family around Las Vegas, and it's just me. And I'm taking them all to different places, and I'm like the secret circle now. I'm like their best friend, taking them to the Cirque du Soleil and getting their popcorn and making sure they get on all their seats and making sure that Sambob has enough food. And if you still have that kind of outsider heart, it doesn't matter how close to the circle you are, you still feel like an other. You still feel kind of,
Yeah.
Away. And I couldn't agree with you more that it really, when it comes down to like the circle of love is predicated on complete obedience, and you may have different point of view, and you may disagree on things, like what a vinyasa is and what the count on the vinyasa is, or how far apart your legs should be in Trikonasana. You have a different point of view, and then well, now you're outside the circle of love. Well, fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wish it wasn't fuck off though, because I kind of make it so I pretend that it's not fuck off. Like I pretend partly it's a reality is that I love what I do, but what I do, it does require pure Ashtanga, we'll say, very like that, because to me that's this foundation that I base everything I do off of. So it's not like I do some other kind of yoga over here now. I do Ashtanga with this super wide interpretation. And I love the fact that there's this narrow interpretation, and because that gives me, then I'm still able to. It's not just this nothingness, because that's what my thing could look like. It could look like, wow, it's just some kind of wacky hatha yoga, not wacky, but very open-ended, we'll say. And but no, it's anchored in this very strict, structured discipline that Sharat upholds, and teachers close to him. And me, I like that. I want that freedom out here to do my thing, because I really feel strongly that the way I interpret it has great value. Okay, and I do wish that there was room to go, David's cool out there, even though he's really different, and you could take what David does and then destroy Ashtanga or lose it entirely, but you don't have to, right? And so that's what would be my ideal, right? And partly I can't, if I want that ideal, which it's never going to happen probably, but at the very least I can say I cannot go fuck off. I can go there. I can go. I respect what you do, but I still am over here doing this.
Right.
And
I love that. I mean, I think it also speaks to needing to have kind of a dichotomy, or needing to have black in order to have light, or needing to have, needing the two, like the yin and the yang. We need this, we need the structure. We need someone to take that. And I say that too. I'm always so glad that Sharat's taken up this position of upholding this orthodox method, because somebody needs to, kind of maintain that stance. But at the same time, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who think that you're quite cool out here doing doing your interpretation. Me being one of them. I think there is a lot of room for interpretation, but like you're saying, you can't have interpretation without the
orthodoxy,
structure, right? Without that sort of thing to interpret.
And I do love what Russell said too, is that everyone it's a natural thing that I will see it different than the next person. And the further you go into it, the more that's going to be true. You're going to individualize it. And this is just natural. It's just like, and what's important to me is like that I give myself permission to go into that and feel it and experience it in my practice, and then in my teaching. And I really try my best to walk the line of like kind of show what this traditional practice looks like, what the core of Ashtanga looks like. And then my methodology of teaching is quite systematic in a way. So it's not just random, even though there's a lot of freedom within it, but it's got parameters, and it's so yeah.
you were extremely generous with us, David, and you sent us a copy of your book, Ashtanga Yoga Vinyasa, Movement, Breath, and Posture in the Primary Series. And looking through the book and using it was really wonderful. It felt to me like reading a kind of grand unified theory of Ashtanga yoga practice, in that there are parts that worked to say David Swenson's book, in that it opens like a practice manual. There are some options that you can think about, and yet it also had like this Lino Miele's practice book, where with such with such attention to the breath and the vinyasa. And when there are times, like you say, this is the correct vinyasa of the breath, but then you'll notice in say Ashtadasha, the breath continues. This is a continuation of the breath. You have notes here of where there are free breathing or extra breaths, and it's such a these are all things that we would pay attention to while we were practicing. We would notice, if we're doing Guruji's primary series, like there's a lot of extra breathing here. Like I'm doing the count, but it's like
Yeah.
10 breaths for me when I'm in downward dog. I don't, and so like how many breaths should I actually be doing? It's like, no, though you were paying attention to it and writing it down. I love this part here. I've never seen it anywhere else. And it was, let's see if I can just find it quickly. It's this notation on springing, crouching, springing, and the crouch and spring and destination. This page is, we all know about it. We all know to do it, but no one ever says, look, this is a thing that's happening in the practice and you have to pay attention to doing this thing. Like Prasarita Parathanasana, not Prasarita, what is this? Upavishta Konasana.
Supta Konasana.
Supta Konasana, Upavishta Konasana. There's a crouch and a spring and then a destination when you actually get into the posture. Like it was so wonderful to see that.
Mm.
I wonder if you could talk to us about the creation of this book. It's such a masterpiece.
Yeah. Oh man, that book it nearly killed me.
Oh dear.
No, I mean you can see how detailed it is and how thorough in a way, and it took a long time to evolve. There's definitely well more than 100 drafts of it, and like kind of mature drafts of, and because, well, yeah, it's hard to talk about. I don't really know, you guys. It's just like, but for one, the crouch and spring is really key to it all. And so one thing I wanted to depict is that so you have a photograph for every single vinyasa in the series, and it's not just and a description. So and that evolved. It wasn't starting off like that, but then it evolved into that. I had two people working with me. That one was a book designer, and she her name's Ashley, and she helped. Her and I sort of came up with that structure, and it started off, I think, being based kind of on Lino's grid structure. But then Lino's in Lino's, it's a perfect example of Ashtanga, like the core. Like it has no extra. Okay, it's just breaths and positions, but it doesn't give you any other information, doesn't give you any of those extra movements or breaths.
Yeah.
And so my book is all the way at the other end of the range there. Because it details, like, like when you go to triangle pose, you got the 5 vinyasa, right? And but the first vinyasa, it starts in samastitihi, and you make a crouch and you spring out, you separate your feet, you angle your legs and rotate your thighs, and you do all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so there's multiple movements and breaths in that first vinyasa. Okay,
Mhm.
and but those aren't detailed at all in Leno's book or in people really teaching much. Okay, and so but I've detailed those. I've given you four three photos sometimes for one vinyasa position to show you. Um, and
Yeah.
basically, I'll tell you what crystallized for me, and to make this book, Russell and Harmony,
Mhm.
it is. Here's what I concluded. Okay, this Ashtanga's contribution to Hatha Yoga, or one main one, is this idea that the movement into the pose is important.
Yep.
Okay,
Mhm.
so before Ashtanga, there was you just did poses, right?
Yeah.
And nobody studied or made any kind of formal thing around transitioning. Okay,
Mhm.
and even Vinyasa yoga that came from Ashtanga, they still don't. Well, I won't talk about that. Just let me go back to this. So basically, to me, I figured out that the study of Hatha yoga is two equal parts, and that is being in the pose and transitioning into the pose. Or in Ashtanga terms, it's vinyasa and state of the asana. Okay, and that book, it celebrates vinyasa. It tells you how to approach your transitions, and in this very conscious way every time you do it. So every time you jump back, every time you go to upward dog, downward dog, and jump through, it's not you don't phone those in. You don't do them on automatic. No, you do them as like as part of the art of movement, and this is part of your yoga. Like that, it
Mhm.
just as much to study your transition is just as important for self knowledge as to being in your pose.
Mhm.
And it's so weird that we who do Ashtanga, I mean, it's so obvious we we move, right, so
Yeah.
much, and we do these transitions, but we miss it. We like instead. It's partly because there's hundreds of transitions in a practice, but we just
Yeah.
kind of forget about the transition, even
Mhm.
though it's built into our system and um, formalized. See, it's not, I
Yeah.
didn't make it up. That's what's amazing.
Mhm.
It's no, that when you read Leno's book, there's 5 vinyasa in triangle and there's 22 in Janu A. But those have to be detailed. They have to be looked at and sorted through and studied. You can't just say they're there because
Right.
people stop paying attention and don't consider,
Right.
like, the moment you lift up um, and breathe in before you fold forward, or the vinyasa when you're coming out and you lift up. Like those are key hatha yoga moments.
And
You
God
see,
forbid you don't do them in class.
what's that?
And God forbid you don't do them in class, in a lead class. It's like, hey, what are you doing? You get yelled
Right.
at if you don't do it
Yeah.
correctly. Yeah, but
Right.
where are they written down? Mm.
And where's the real development of them? Like, because Pattabhi Jois, I mean, he was big on bandhas, but he rarely ever taught anyone specifically about them, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
doing like Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, this isn't easy, and but Ashtanga takes a hard thing and makes it accessible if you know how to go in there and access it. And that
Mhm.
Mhm.
book helps you to do it. The whole language that it's putting in it, it's showing you how the value of each vinyasa and like what you can extract from it. So,
Yeah.
wow.
I think
Yeah.
it's so beautiful, this idea of making an asana book that's focusing on the vinyasa, on these transitions between the postures. Because I think it's a beautiful metaphor actually for life, because I've
Yeah.
been thinking about this a lot, and I feel like 90% of our life is kind of like in transition, right? And like transitions are
Yeah,
hard. They're like really
exactly right.
hard.
And you got to be ready.
Yeah.
And so if you look at that book, Russell, you'll see when it comes to, so like in Leno's book, there's the gray box where it's the state of the asana, where you do the 5 to 8 breaths, right? If you look in my book, there's all these bullet points for all the
Yeah.
vinyasas. But
Yeah.
then when you get to the state of the asana, you'll never find one instruction.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Now what?
I have see, because that's not the focus,
Yeah.
and it would have been too big of a book to do that. But
Yeah.
I have another book that has that actually. I
Oh,
have another book that has bullet points for what you do when you're in the asana. But this is a celebration of vinyasa,
beautiful.
and
Yeah.
so and of course there's overlap, like because
Mhm.
I some of those bullet points deal with being in the pose, but it and I love that's so true that that is see to me I want to share something with you. Hold on. I keep a journal. Did want to share that with you, like
Yeah,
ongoing.
your first book, it was sort of a illustration, or like a, I don't know, a not a reprint, but it included a lot of your journal notes, right?
Yeah, that I'm sorry. I'll be right there.
Yes,
What
yes.
did I
You
do with it?
find your thing.
I had it here. Now I lost it. Yes, my it wasn't actually my first book. My breathing book was my first one, the pranayama,
Okay.
but the
Yeah.
Maps and Musings is the one you're
Maps
talking
and
about.
musing. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
But so and this is kind of my current journal, and I just want to share with
Beautiful.
you like what I write. I do different things, but sometimes I try to write these concise. To me they're poems, but they're very specific to the practice. Okay, and so this one says, practice is 50% a study of movement, transitions, vinyasa, and 50% a study of being rooted in an immovable spot.
Mm.
Okay, and then it goes, therefore, yoga is at once skill in action, like the Bhagavad Gita says,
Mhm.
and skill in transcending or stopping action, like
Mm.
nirodha. And yeah, so
Beautiful.
that's the whole deal. Harmony is when you really take to that study of you in action through vinyasa, then you transfer that. It's a
Yeah.
whole approach to decision making and taking action in this changing world and the changing self, and like
Yeah.
we are challenged, right? So many challenges are
Yeah.
there, and you have to be ready for action, and also willing to take risks,
Mm.
and take chances even when things don't work out, and right.
Mhm.
And it's really easy to become sort of risk adverse and back off of action because of being fear of being wrong, or
Mhm.
not getting it right, and so basically with practice we've got to open up the whole subject of me in action,
Yeah.
and make it a practice, and then yes.
Yeah.
I love what you said about the urgency to take risks and how important it is to take risk. And I was thinking about just the fact of the book itself is a risk. I was thinking of all of the different people that have made books, and you could start with Iyengar's Light on Yoga and the risk that he took with his own teacher, which went very badly when he made, you know,
In that
and
direction, it went very well in another direction, though.
yeah, and then there's the risk that David Swenson or Leno or Matthew Sweeney took with making books, or Graham Miele, I think Gregor
Great.
Miele. And just, if you really want to get off on a bad foot with your teacher, make a book. And then, then you'll be raked right over the coals, and every last thing that you said will be dismissed because you made a book, and it's that's a hell of a choice to make. I mean, because I'd have to think that you must have had some trepidation in making a book in the first place.
Oh my God, Russell! So you can't believe, so. To me, it's super challenging, honestly. And it's sort of reflected in. I got one bad review so far on Amazon, and and the and basically and I had this friend of mine, is kind of a student, too, and he's an amazing writer, and he wrote a review and sort of referenced that review a little bit. And one of the things he said was how good of a writer, like it was one of the best negative reviews he's ever written, negative reviews he's ever read. Yeah. So the guy, and he slams me pretty hard, and sort of hits me where I'm vulnerable in that book. And he calls it like, clownish and, obfuscating language, and because there's a lot of poetic, references in that book. Like I really lay my soul bare in that book. I take a lot of chances, and it could be seen as clownish, the language as flowery, and especially if you compare it to like Leno's book, which is just completely solid, bare bones, not one, emotion or
excess sentence.
I mean, it's basically a instruction manual in a way. Like it's like put this here, done.
Period. Yeah.
And so it was a huge risk, and it's partly why I started off with saying that it almost killed me. Is just from the work that it took, but also just committing to that, but I grew as a teacher and as a person, hugely from writing the book and publishing it, and I mean, at the end of the day, I see, and this goes to my core belief about yoga, which is kind of strange, because it's the biggest paradox of yoga, actually. And because on one hand, yoga is about kind of merging with the infinite and seeing the unity of everything, and dissolving your ego, and so, but on another, note, and I feel that this is sort of a Western contribution and, evolution of yoga, but it's controversial, which is that at the same time, yoga is about individuating. It's about it, that the further you go into yoga, the more solitary and, unique and original the path becomes, and so this is big, but you have to be able, like that, because yoga is about self-reliance and independence, and it's about standing alone, and so that everyone out there, they are not going to see it the way that you see it, and there's a certain backbone you have to have, strength, and a conviction to stand for whatever your view is, or what you see, or what your experience is, and just merging with the infinite won't satisfy that, that sort of human need to be your
Make
own
connection.
person on this planet. And so that book is, for me, that is me being my own person on this planet. And it's also encouraging you to do that. And it's teaching that, it's championing that. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
When we hosted you at our school in Victoria, gosh, that was like 11 years ago now, I think. I remember you spoke about something that I hadn't really heard in a workshop before. And it was like maybe just like it wasn't like a whole workshop on it, but it was just something that you said that always stuck with me and really resonated, was about the courage that it takes to practice yoga, but also the courage that you cultivate through the practice of yoga, and just this emphasis on courage. And I feel like that's what you're also speaking to here, is like that courage to stand on your own and to stand up for yourself, what you believe in, the courage to separate from like what everyone else is doing, also the courage maybe to like leave your ego and to like merge with the infinite, but just this beautiful kind of emphasis on courage and what it takes to actually do a practice.
Yeah. Yes. Right.
Yeah,
My whole experience of practice was terror.
Courage to face yourself every day.
Yeah, waking up terrified and doing whatever position I needed. I'd like to ask you this question actually. Doing whatever it took, whatever it needed, so that I could get onto the mat and face a practice. And that eventually became so Byzantine and convoluted that the whole thing kind of fell apart under its own weight. Like waking up and doing half of third series to prepare myself to do intermediate in the shala. I would wake up like 3 hours
Yeah.
before practice and do all these, third series back bends,
To warm up.
like my chest on the ground, my legs up the wall, so that I could, do Kapotasana. What is it like for you? And let's say it's 2000, you're in Mysore. What was that like for you? Would you wake up at 2 a.m? Would you find a coffee walla and go, and what would you do?
So Russell, you're describing my experience. Okay? Yeah. Pure terror. And then waking up at 2:30 in the morning with this insane warm-up routine just to
Wow.
go do that thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, and and I don't know. There's something cool about that in a way, like the amount of dedication and like sacrifice that it takes,
Yeah.
and something really strong to be learned from it. But it also, for me, what's interesting about it is the whole idea of fear, though. Okay, and the terror, like, because in a way, that's. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, it's changed, but that's still this major theme for me, is fear, is waking up very afraid.
Mm.
And now I'm not as afraid of like the back bend that I'm going to do, because I've backed off and I do things more within my, more readily within my limits or my
Mm.
capabilities. But but it's more David as a person, and what I'm negotiating, and the challenges I face, and how damn hard that is. And it it's partly just basic living, but it's also a deeper thing. It's existential. It's a deep thing to face how often I am afraid,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't seem like it's a it's a big motivator in a way of practice for me. Like, and I feel bad in a way, because even I've practiced for a long time, and it hasn't yet led me to need to practice less. You know what I mean? Yeah, I still need a big long practice to put myself straight every day, and
Mm.
and fear is a big player in that. and I'm sorry to say it, but also shame and anger. Like there's real strong emotions that they last, and they I don't know. I don't find them easy to eliminate, and
Mm-hmm.
and I practice in order to encounter those more gracefully and lessen
Mm-hmm.
their effects, or and also eliminate them. But I'm amazed that it's a daily thing that has to happen,
It's
and
still there, yeah.
yeah, and so so like that. It's so interesting. You're going back to that, that whole terror of Mysore and the intensity of that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's something very memorable about it, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that I went through it, even though I don't know. I feel that there was some negative outcome from it, like pushing my body too far. Like
Yeah.
if I had to do that much warm up and be that scared, and something's not right, like somehow,
Yeah. Well,
and
I had the sense that if I wasn't grabbing my calves in Kapotasana, I wasn't going to be competitive.
yeah,
The whole sentence is fucked up. There's nothing.
terrible,
That's a
right?
terrible sentence to say out loud
I
about what the
know.
situation is involving your spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. But what's funny though is, yeah, no, it's terrible. It's terrible, right? And I mean, we somehow it's a bad look or a bad statement about us, but it's also a bad statement about like hatha yoga or ashtanga yoga.
Mm,
And to me, I don't know. I see, and this is I believe that like hatha yoga and ashtanga, these are very powerful healing disciplines for
mhm.
that can truly transform and enhance a person's life. And but each one of us, we mangle them. We
Mhm.
really do a dismal job of interpreting them, and we lose the purity of it. And it's okay. It's sort of a natural human thing to do. But at the same time, we have to climb out of that our ignorance and our mistakes, and really, really apply ourselves and try to purify and kind of interpret the practice in evolving and ways that help us, and
Mhm.
because and it's interesting because that fight for kapotasana, I don't know, it doesn't have to be negative.
Mhm.
It's just the way, but when it's competitive and you're comparing yourself to someone else or something, then um, an ego is involved.
Yeah.
Then oh, well, no, you see, this is the thing, Russell. I feel like that the very fact that you do get competitive and that your ego does get involved is actually necessary, right? You're like that's what practice is designed to do, and you actually have to care about what you're doing enough
Yeah.
that your ego gets raised up by it, or you become afraid, or you right. And
You
it's because your whole job is to meet the challenge, or encounter your ego and observe and see what am I made of here? What and like, right? What am I
yeah.
made of? Um, and then what am I going to do about it? Like my reaction, or this emotion that I'm having, or this thought process that I'm going through.
I agree. I feel like that you create a so let's call it a safe environment, even though there was really very dangerous. You create a safe environment where you practice very difficult things that you are striving to meet the challenge of, And then, yes, you have this kaleidoscope of emotional responses to them that you're then managing with your breath and state of mind.
You're training your nervous system to regulate
You're
under duress
absolutely,
or under emotion or under
Yeah.
these
yeah.
conditions that you're actually creating for yourself.
But
I mean,
at a certain point, you can get a little too attached to the kung fu belts that you're acquiring along the way, and they're just
Yeah.
you can
all.
also get
Yeah.
addicted to the sensation of like needing to create those conditions all the time and needing to like regulate your nervous
Yes.
system all the time.
Mm.
I mean, it's a paradox, right? I mean,
It is a perfect paradox.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like we
And
need both.
I'm sorry. I hope I like our theme we're on, but I have to say, Russell, as this conversation is unfolding, I am remembering you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the funniest thing anyone's ever said to me.
Yeah.
Well, conversations we had in the old days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dusting off the memory.
You may remember me with a mohawk. Maybe if I had a mohawk, that would bring it back better.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. I definitely, you were younger.
Yeah, I was much younger then.
Much younger.
I was much younger then, yeah. I was many decades younger, David. I wanted to tell you a story, and I didn't know if it was appropriate, but I feel like this might be the best time. I was in Taiwan, and your beloved mentor and friend Adil, I don't know how to say his last name, Paklavala?
Yep.
Paklavala. He came to visit, and he had a terrible time with his back, and his back had gone out, and he had to teach the entire program sitting down the entire weekend. It was terrible. And as I remember at the time, he was a little heavy set. He was a big guy,
Yeah.
and but he was teaching us backbends, and it was really nice. And one of the students, in a very Taiwanese way, not to be racist, but a very Taiwanese way, said just out loud, when I see backbenders, they all seem really fat. They seem like fat. Like, are fat people better backbenders? And I just died inside by the very Chinese way of being very blunt about being fat.
Yeah.
Like, you're fat, Adil. Is that why you're doing such a good backbend? I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. and but it also, like, it strikes me in this conversation about being in your own way in a practice. And so maybe you have a natural tendency to be relaxed, and it makes so many things easier. But there's a tension towards striving and achievement, but you can be too intent on striving and achievement and then get in your own way of striving and achieving something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and is there a question in that? Like, what's
the balance between abhyasa and vairagya, or what's the balance between ease and effort? What's the balance between?
I really just wanted to tell my Taiwan story.
Oh, how do you get out of your own way?
How do you get out of your own way? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah.
How do you not be so attached to the results that you get in your own way?
I feel very much
yoga?
like I'm in my own way. How do I stop doing that?
No, it's funny. I relate to you, man. I like your honesty, because I definitely feel like I'm in my own way. There's no question, and it's so hard because there's almost no way to get out of my own way. Like, my whole thought process just leads to it, right? Like, it's just it's such an amazing, terrible position to be in, and it's one of the the biggest challenges of continuing to practice actually is like
Mhm.
kind of facing the fact that I am in my own way, but I'm in such a rut of repetition and habit in a way of response that it's really, really tough to change it.
Mhm.
And so, but I do think that that it is a double key, like the whole paradox thing. And one is the acceptance, and Alan Watts really emphasizes it, is that there really is nothing you can do to help yourself because you don't need to, right? That
Yeah.
you don't need to help yourself. And the whole process of thinking you need fixing or to be different or change or
Mhm.
that's all like your mind just playing its games on you.
Mhm.
And in some ways, the more you do it, the more you try to fix it and get in there and worry it and anxiety it and feel shame around it or whatever, then you're making it worse. But that, to me, that does not answer the whole thing, because there's also uh, I mean, this whole thing about vinyasa is that you really do have to observe your actions and grow basically and change and act differently based on what is really going on in a circumstance, and being able to size up things more accurately and without so much bias or coloring, and so but I'm with you. It's very, very challenging to, like, basically, I would say call it to not plateau uh,
Mhm.
spiritually or as a person, and keep that growth happening and stay alive and you, you know
Is would you consider freak falling into a crevice as not plateauing?
Free falling downwards.
Is that okay?
no, but here's one of my favorite lines. I'm sorry, I maybe it's corny or chody, I don't know, but so he goes through that whole dark song, Chris Cornell. I fell on
Oh,
black
yeah.
days.
Right.
Okay, and but his only little bright moment is, I sure don't mind the change.
Yeah,
Right?
it's
Mhm.
beautiful, right?
All that stuff, he's like, I sure don't mind the change. So like, even if you fall into a crevice, at least it's something different.
Yeah,
And now
exactly.
and
Mm.
hopefully we don't have to fall into a crevice and like mangle ourselves or like, really set ourselves back in order to grow or get a different circumstance, right? And this that's a big thing, is to be able to yeah, not harm yourself, because pain, right? And
Mhm.
pain is, right, a big teacher, you can say. It's
Yeah.
like it forces change and forces a different perspective. And but I mean, it's not, you'd hope that you don't have to, it doesn't take pain to get yourself into a dark hole or a terrible position, and then all of a sudden now it's really different. Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, been
More
there.
limited.
Wow, I can't, yeah, I have piriformis syndrome, and I've just multiple
Sciatica.
herniations, and everything is really different now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you see, but listen, this is the thing though. This is what is so important in yoga, I feel like. And it's not what they advertise, okay? But what's important is you keep practicing through that process of basically harming yourself. I mean, what else can you call it?
Yeah.
Of big mistakes and that set you back, and then instead of quitting or moving on to something else or everything else you could do, you pick it up and you start where you are and negotiate that and hopefully, though, I will say, Russell, is hopefully there is some kind of arc where you don't fall so far so hard when you fall, right? That doesn't keep happening, that you actually gain some ground and reach some place of more stability and health or something, or awakened soulfulness, something that keeps you a little bit balanced and centered, um, more easily and more with more consistency.
At this point, half the way down, I'm looking at like an opportunity to turn the pavement into one of these, rubber trampolines, like in the Matrix. Like that's
Yeah,
my last shot.
You can
Is like
rebound
I can
back
just
up.
rebound. It's like, oh, I
Why
didn't
not?
jump across the buildings, but at least I realize that everything is Maya.
I didn't make it to the other side, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna
it's
get
all.
repelled back
This
up.
is all illusionary. The
I gotta
falling.
tell you this though. This is the hard part for me in what you're talking about. And can I tell you? You see, to me, I mean, I saw it. I mean, I I want to say a few things about this, if you don't mind. But I saw one of those Instagram little moments that I thought was pretty interesting. It was a ballerina that said, when you hit hard times, train harder. You know, and to me that it's crude and it could be wrong, but I don't. To me, like, I do think that we can tend to think like it's like our attitude towards work. You think you work, and then you retire, and then the ultimate thing is to not work, right? And I think we can take that attitude in our yoga, is that somehow our hardest tapas, or our deepest commitment to practice is behind us. That now we're a teacher, or we're a parent, and we have other responsibilities, and so our practice is not a priority. And and I just disagree with that. Like, or I want to question that. And to me, the in some ways, I think that as your life goes on, you should step up your practice. You should actually sacrifice more for it, not less, and go deeper into it. And for me, when I do that, for the most part, I can say that that's where you get the trampoline that you like that. So it's right. And it's so funny because you're so opposite. If you're hurt or you're sick or you're down, you want comfort. You want to indulge. Like, I still remember my mom, when she used to get sick, she would go get Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh,
Right?
amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, but that is not the smartest thing to do, right? Like, it, and so it's just something I square on in myself, that I actually, it's like, when I'm hurting, I gotta get returned to my practice, and really look at it and take it seriously, um, and then the other thing, that beautiful line from Krishnamacharya, I hold on to, and what he says, it's in the Yoga Rahasya. He says that yoga asana can cure ailments that no other thing will cure. So you can go to the doctor, you can go to the chiropractor, you can do all these things, but in the asana, it's very, very potent, but and strong as a healing medicine. And you're right, it's dangerous, like you kind of with a dark humor said before. But that's like the surgeon's scalpel, right? That
Also dangerous.
it's a
Yeah.
healing practice, and so don't turn away from it, even if if practicing partly got you to where you are, to the hurting place that you're in.
Mm.
It means you have got to take it more seriously and respect its challenges and how difficult it is, and then also tap into your knowledge. See, you've been practicing for a long time, um, and you have a lot of knowledge, and it might just take a little flip, a little tiny switch to like go into a healing vein and somewhere that renews you rather than breaks you down. I'm just going to share a little bit, whatever, it's just what it is. But my mom is my main parent, okay?
Mm.
But she
Yeah.
has set up this thing where yoga is evil. She's
Oh,
a
that's a
Seventh-day
shame.
Adventist.
Okay.
Yeah, and so
Mm.
we can't mention the word yoga. So
Yeah.
we dance around that all the time. And so my mom doesn't know any of my books or anything. And so like I'm not celebrated in my family. Like we don't even talk about what David does,
Right.
right?
The
And so
Satan.
I'm like Harry Potter or something, or Cinderella, and so
With the
I'm like a little
Muggles.
bit of a rock star over here in my own world, but in my family, I'm like in the doghouse all the time.
Mm.
Although, yeah, yeah, whatever. So Bill Ross is my mother's second husband, and
Oh.
he was an architectural illustrator, and he was like he's like a Buddha. He looks like Sonny Bono. He's kind of a little bit stocky, and he has that mustache, the
Mustache.
wall,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a little bit like a walrus. And so, but he's a beautiful artist and illustrator, architectural illustrator, and he's failing his health. He's getting 80 years old. And when I was writing that book, and incidentally, he lived in Calgary. He's a Canadian,
Oh,
and
Wow.
yeah,
who's the
and
fellow with the
well,
mustache? The hockey player?
Oh, Lenny McDonald.
He's got a little Lanny McDonald mustache. That's great.
yeah. So I somehow convinced him to. I gave him photographs, and he made those drawings of me. Um,
Wow.
and Russell, he died about a year ago. Like he did.
Oh,
This was
wow.
the last art he did before he died. And
Oh.
it's given me chills, actually. Like, and it
Yeah.
felt so amazing, like to make that connection with him, like that I mean, and he really, you can see how much he got into it. Like
Yeah.
he did such a beautiful job, and I'm so happy that you saw the skill in that
Yeah.
and the beauty, because it wasn't, like you could do it with a computer or no, but this had like decades of
Skill.
Yeah.
expertise
Yeah.
and love behind it. Yeah,
Love for the
like
subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could see it.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, I was really I was just, leafing through it and I'm like, oh shit, you don't normally see really good drawings. These are
I have.
really, really good.
I was trying to get him. Like I was trying to get as many as I could. Like I wanted to get all three series, but
Yeah.
Oh,
he petered
wow.
out
Yeah.
before I was able. So I have them all saved. I had Andrea, you know
Yeah.
her, Solomon.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew Solomon, yep.
Yes. So I had her go over to his house and get me the physical drawings that he made,
Oh,
and
amazing.
I have them.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
It's a that's an amazing story of kind of
Yeah.
it's something you have to still kind of keep hidden from your mom, which is so
I know.
amazing.
Yeah, and this is the other thing is her and Bill stayed friends all the way till he died, and so they were in communication, and she never, and like it was weird because I hadn't had that much contact with him, but then I was all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I've been talking to Bill and stuff, but we didn't ever mention like what was actually happening.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it's incredible the kind of the generational change I think that we're all kind of experiencing. Harmony took a picture of me yesterday that was wild. It was in the light at Calgary Folk Fest, and I was shock white with gray hair and silver. And I was like, is that a real photo? She said, yeah, that's a real photo. I didn't alter it at all. I was like, wow, okay. And we're all kind of grown up now, David. And when we were kids, you know, the yoga teachers like Nancy Gilgoff and Doug Swenson, they were the Sonny and Cher. You know, they were the old crew were all Sonny and Cher types.
Who are they now?
But they're 80 years old now, you know, and now, you know, the real masters that are still, you know, running around, walking around, teaching, and not just off in their caves. They're all ex-punks, you know. They're all like ex-members of Black Flag.
Hey,
and
Russell, can I tell you? I'm sorry. I feel like, and I don't. This might be putting myself too high. I realize this, but I feel a little bit like Lance Mountain, you know, because like, you know, the skateboarder.
No, I don't know him.
Because me, I was the pipsqueak around Richard Freeman,
right?
Tim Miller. You know, like I was just this
the
new
Sonny
kid.
and Chers, yeah.
And then now, and Lance Mountain, he was after Tony Alva and Stacy Peralta and Steve Caballero. Like he was the next generation, right?
Yeah.
And he made all these cool videos and like just really became a cool presence in the skate world. And so I don't know. I think I identify with him a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
I'm part of that Gilgoff, David Swenson. I was younger than that.
That's
and
what I'm saying is you're the next. You come out of you're an ex-punk, not an ex-hippie. You know, and that's a completely different generation. Right?
Exactly.
It's a very different background to come at this from, you know, than
totally.
You know,
it's very true. Yeah. I remember Tim when I first started studying with Pattabhi Jois. Tim was assisting, and he called me Danger because I didn't breathe.
Oh,
Very
Danger Man.
Danger Man.
Yeah. So I learned how to breathe.
Like maggot brain. You're the maggot brain of the Ashtanga yoga world.
The Danger Man.
Danger Man.
I love that title for you.
I mean, this is a little bit tangential, but so my partner Joy is a filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder if I can show that to you. Anyway, so she's one of her films she made. She never released it, but she's still planning to. But it was called The Bhakti Boy.
Yeah.
And it was based loosely on my little punk story of joining the band and all this stuff. And in that movie, there's a character called Maggot Brain. And he's like this guardian angel to this main kid that's the star. And I played Maggot Brain in the movie. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
That's so cool. I remember seeing her Instagram posts of Bhakti Boy, like some of the things from the film.
So Maggot Brain, his costume, it was like, it was supposed to be kind of like a John Lydon, like it was a sport coat that was all ripped up with safety pins and painting and everything.
Yeah.
But we had these made by an artist, cobra heads, like Ananta. So he's a punk with the Ananta cobra heads. And that was my character. So I wore the Ananta. And so I was like Ananta is to Vishnu. I was kind of like the guardian angel of this punk But my name was Maggot Brain. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Maggot Brain is I think P-Funk's finest album, if you ask me. It's,
I don't know it. Is it a good one?
oh,
I have to check.
Jesus. Yeah. Super Stupid. Can you get to that? The like 18-minute guitar intro. It was like, it's a phenomenal. I remember it was so
Wow.
revelatory to me. I was living in Kentucky at the time for like a summer, and I was a freshman coming back from college, and I was 18. And I was like cynical, like, I think I've kind of heard everything that there is to hear. I want to hear
Yeah.
more new music. And because I've heard all the old music, you have that kind of arrogant cynicism. And someone handed me Maggot Brain by P-Funk, and it just like exploded my mind that, oh, there's like a mountain of music that I haven't heard on the radio, that's just that no one's listening to because it's not right for television audiences at home. And I'm like, it opened up, like, I need to really start looking for music now, because there's a lot of it that I haven't heard. Because
Yeah.
it's a picture. If you ever see it, it's a black woman buried in the earth up to her head with a giant afro, and it's just like the most. If you can get your hands on this vinyl record, it's like the most phenomenal piece of art to own in your home. And it's like
Yeah.
and I occasionally now people are kind of coming back around to it, and you'll hear it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
movies, and people like, oh yeah, they sampled Maggot Brain. I'm like, oh
I'm gonna look it up
yeah,
for
Yeah,
sure.
it's worth it.
P-Funk.
So I know that you're super dedicated. You have like a sadhana practice that includes hatha yoga asana that you're doing daily for a couple of hours. And your diet, your whole lifestyle, I think, is like really part of your spiritual practice. But can you tell us a little bit about how you're like pursuing, your spiritual discipline these days? What are you focusing on?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I feel like we've been saying. I don't know. I truly feel I'm at one of the most challenging times in my life,
Mm-hmm.
personally, kind of within because of the sort of coming so far on the road, and then feeling like there's a lot more to go,
Mm-hmm.
and just, I don't know, in some ways not feeling up to it, or not
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like um I have this little poem that I wrote. I want to read to you that it sort of sums it up in a very small thing. Um, but it sucks in a way. Like, I don't know. It really challenges me to be a yoga teacher, honestly, because of the responsibility
Mm-hmm.
to others. And this is what's so hard, because yeah, I feel this big responsibility to like be an example,
Mm-hmm.
and it grows more, and yet I just I don't know. I just question whether my growth is meeting that feeling of needing to grow more. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but so basically, here's what I wrote. So after decades of shallowly playing at the sport of yoga, there's two poems. This is one of them. After decades and decades of shallowly playing at the sport of yoga, the question arises: will I ever begin to play this high stakes, death defying game in earnest?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's one thing. And then the other is, damn, am I not going to find it? Damn it.
Take your time.
But basically, oh no, that really sucks. Wanted to find that. But basically, what it said is my boyish ways have finally caught up with me. And do I have enough left to become a man? Do I have enough stuff left? Like, right? So, and, and, and it's weird because on the outside, like I don't know, I guess better than ever or something like, but I'm talking about this inner feeling and this inner place,
Yeah.
and and so, and I'm genuine that I'm finding it very challenging, honestly.
Yeah.
And um, and so my response is, like I said, that if it's tough, then you get tougher. And so I've spent a lot of time practicing, um, and I've included like running and bicycling. It's like I have this sort of need to physicalize it right now. Um, like I go on a long bike ride, and I just be with myself, and but I also need the exertion. Like I'm running hills and stuff, and yeah, it's a weird path that I'm on, you guys, because in some ways it's very solitary. Like Joy is she's going more and more into her kind of filmmaking world, um, and I've had some health challenges, like I've dealing with kind of vertigo and
Right.
kind of vestibular problems, and so they make it hard to engage socially. And I'm and so I
And it wasn't easy
and I've
for
been
you in the first place.
what's that?
And it wasn't easy for you in the first place.
Exactly. I know. And so, like, I'm trying to heal that, and it's a real tough nut. Like I've been, and so just being super strict on or different and careful in my diet, in my rest, in my practice, and like I've uh, so I'm really focusing on it, and I feel like circumstances have forced it, or and it's weird because like I said, I would have thought that I'd be like just more established or somehow, and more comfortable in my own skin, and then that my teaching would reflect that or something. And no, it's like I'm needing to do all this. My own personal practice has to be really big right now, and it's almost like it got depleted or drained from writing the book, and the COVID. That whole COVID thing really challenged me in different ways, and so that's what's happening for me. I'm like almost in a it's I could almost say it's a ongoing personal retreat, you could say. And if you look at me, I mean, I'm looking good, right? Like, and I've been taking really good care of myself, like I never have before, and I'm trying to sustain that, and like really step up, and take these things seriously, like I cut out sugar, and
Wow.
different things that were like long standing habits for me, and just trying to be more serious about what I'm doing, and yeah, and
I really appreciate the honesty that you're bringing to your struggle, and this is a public forum, and so it, it's I think it's really valuable for people to hear that honesty, to hear that struggle, and so they people understand that it's not just them who feel that they've failed at something that is the most important thing in their life, but it's the attempt to get up and do it every day that is the success,
Yeah.
and it
It's very relatable, I
it
think,
is.
like no matter what stage you're at. But I think also meeting it and embracing these stages, these phases, these different, ups, highs and lows as part of the journey and part of our spiritual discipline. And however, we're ready to meet it, whether it is through like head on, like more intense practice, or whether it's for whether it's like you need to like really rest and like nourish yourself, or whatever, like however you're feeling equipped to meet it, I think is also part of the journey and the lesson. And it's just beautiful, I think, for you to share that, no matter what stage you're at, even after 40 years of practice, that
Yeah.
it's still part of the journey. Like there is no there, right? You're never going to get to this
Yeah.
place that's like you're free from suffering and obstacles in life, because as long as you're in a body, you're still going to have to deal with your body and life and other people. And
Yeah. And like, well, and I've made these choices now, like, because Joy, so we don't have children and don't
Mhm.
have plans to have children. And
Yeah.
like, Joy is deeply involved and passionate in what she's doing.
Yeah.
And like, we don't do the same thing. Like,
Mm.
Right.
and so here I am, like, like, I, it's like I don't have something else to distract me. It's like, and so it's a real gift, you could say, like that I get to do sadhana,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's also damned hard, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and of course, like if you've got a family and you've got responsibilities in that way or different things, then you've got your own set of challenges, and that you've got to figure out how you're going to embrace those things and
Mhm.
deepen your commitment and your devotion to those things. And so, but for me, like that's the thing, is I've sort of carved out these circumstances, and then yeah, here I am, like, and so I've got to yeah, go into it and
That's
really lean into it.
Yeah.
there's almost like a little metaphor there, like you've carved out these circumstances for yourself, and now you have to stand um in the grave that you've dug. Or the like Jesus, now you like they made Jesus dig his own cave, and like that would
Yeah,
have been a
it's like that.
crucifixion.
It feels like a grave. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like this is what I carved out for myself. And it's like lonely and, it's like all kinds of stuff. But
Yeah.
here it is. But it's also beautiful in its own
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
Joy told me she's a real fan of this artist, Agnes Martin,
Oh, she
or
is very good.
Mhm.
Just for the listeners at
amazing
home, you have to
artist.
imagine a large pale canvas, say like 4 feet by 5 feet,
Mhm.
and she's kind of really out of the American folk tradition and so of quilting,
Mhm.
say, and so she's painted and drawn thousands and probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of lines
Mhm.
in her life across these canvases,
Beautiful.
and they're
Yeah.
they're absolutely stunning to be confronted with. Sorry
Yeah.
to
And we've
mansplain
gone,
Agnes Martin for the people at home.
Thank you.
no,
The
no, I
rest of
think
us, thank you.
well, she spent a lot of time alone, and what
Yeah.
she said was the best things happen when you're alone. And
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
not everybody has that perspective at all, right? In fact,
Right. Yeah.
it's exactly the opposite. Like if you look on Instagram and Facebook, it looks like when you're with family or enjoying good times, that's when
Yeah.
the best things happen. And so to
You'd
have some,
think.
and me, what?
You'd think.
Yeah,
But-
you think. But like I spend a lot of time alone, and it's a gift. It's an amazing thing, and especially when you don't resist it, and you
Yeah.
like think of it as a gift, as like, wow, this is it. I don't have, nobody's trying to call me, right? Nobody's not responsible for anything. Like, what am I going to do here with me, David?
Yeah.
And so it's definitely very special and
Well,
good.
I really appreciate that you've sacrificed so much of your time to come and talk to us today, and it's really like when I heard that Harmony had gotten David Garrigues, I was like, oh, amazing, we got David. That's such a great get. It's just I've I've always just so much loved you and looked up to you as a practitioner and as a figure in our space. And I've been aware that there's kind of like schisms and shifts in our community um, that have happened, but like it's happening to all of us everywhere. And I don't know why my wife is throwing our coasters at the dogs. Those are
Get them to be
really
quiet.
valuable, and you don't want them chewing on those. But I just want to say thank you for the space and the time. And it's we live in a kind of very balkanized Ashtanga yoga community at the moment, and it's not the old empire that it was. It's lots of little different fiefdoms, and fuck it, it's what it is. And but thank you for I know your community will listen, and I hope that it gives other communities a chance to hear what you're about and hear how much love you have.
And I know you have
for others.
also some teaching, like you have a teaching tour coming up, some bunch of dates for next year and things. So tell us a little bit about where people can find you.
Yeah, and also I'm going to be teaching in Sri Lanka in December and January. So you can check that out. Yeah,
amazing! Is it a
I'm really
retreat that
excited.
you're going to be doing, or
No, just like Mysore intensive kind of
you're just
thing.
going to relocate there for a couple months? And
Yeah, exactly.
amazing! Oh wow, that'll be so fun.
I was fixing
Sri Lanka.
Anyway,
Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Have you been to Sri Lanka before?
No, this will be my first time.
Oh, incredible!
I took a Christmas in Sri Lanka, and it was the year following the flood, and I was very, very impressed. To me, it was all of the lush green and clean food of Thailand, but with the culture and character of India, but without the filth.
Amazing.
It was a really extraordinary place. And then on top of that, it was the year following the tsunami. And every restaurant that we went in, they would point to the wall and the ceiling, and they would say, "Yeah, that's where the waters were, up there."
Oh yeah.
And then that tree, we found a German tourist dead in that tree. He was a big fat guy. They would say, "It's like this is kind of wild." It was really kind of the people were extraordinarily beautiful and thoughtful and sad at the time.
Yeah.
And yet the whole place was just like a beautiful flower, and it was really wonderful. I can't encourage people more to go and be with you there.
It'll be so fun.
Thank you, Russell. Appreciate that. I really appreciate you guys inviting me and sharing the time and being so enthusiastic about my teaching and what I'm offering. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. If people you have 3 books, a pranayama book, your musings.
I have 4 books.
4 books? Oh my gosh.
And then the poems. Yes. There's a poem book.
Okay, tell us them all.
That's 5. All right,
5 books.
Yeah, and they're all good. I'm sorry, they're all good. Yeah.
And they can find them on your website? Is that the best place to get links?
And it's better if you order it off my website, but you can order them on Amazon too.
Okay.
But my new one is definitely my opus, my
Your
serious.
magnus opus.
The Ashtanga
Yes.
Yoga Vinyasa book. Is that the opus?
Ashtanga Yoga Vinyasa.
You are really like the love child of Iggy Pop and David Life. Like you're just like that's a hidden baby they had. It's really cool sitting here with you and your energy, man.
Wow.
Yeah, you're such an artist. It's beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. Thanks for listening to this episode of Finding Harmony with me, your host, Harmony Slater. You can find out more information on my website, harmonyslater.com, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Standing in eternity's shadow, watching the breaking waves, there's a heart